Hello. I appreciate you listening. I'm gonna try to keep this short, and in an effort to keep it short, I'm not going to go into great detail about what I've done in the past or how my class operates. I'll probably maybe point you to some blog posts that I do, on a periodic basis, just to kind of reflect on how my grading and assessment growth and the changes are coming. I do operate as a standards-based learning environment. It's really student-centered. I have a lot of technology the last couple of years. This year I've got MacBook Airs in a cart, and so here's why I'm asking you to view this video, my response, I guess, to you, my request, and offer me some advice. My school is taken off with the learning management system Canvas this year, and this won't be irrelevant if you have no idea what Canvas is, but I guess Canvas is probably, along the same lines as Schoology, Edmodo, I guess, or something like that. The grade book that we use district-wide is in Canvas. So when you enter grades, you have to use the gradebook in Canvas. What the learning management system encourages is for you to create your assignments with right in Canvas, so that it grades everything for you. Obviously, it won't grade like an essay response, text response kind of question, but that's what the learning management system encourages. I know you know that, but as far as standards-based learning goes, I want to share quickly what I've done in the past. Probably express it better in a blog post, but I may share that with you. But in the past, I've issued my assessments through Google Forms to my students. They didn't have Google Apps accounts, so I literally just took the link and I tiny URL'd it and wrote it on my whiteboard, and I said, here's how you access the assessments when you're ready. Of course, I provide them a buffet of ways for them to practice the concepts and skills that we're trying to cover at that particular time. And I really give my students freedom to choose when they're ready, and I monitor data along the way, make sure no one makes really bad choices and starts a quiz or attempts something that they're clearly not ready for. That takes a level of practice and communication to students, because particularly here where I'm at, no one does anything this way. No one does it that way. So that's sort of why I'm reaching out to you for some support. So the learning management system, Canvas, in the past, if I had to make 2 or 3 versions of an assessment for students, I created them, I gave a tiny URL, and they worked through. And I conference immediately after every student's test. And typically, the testing situation works as such. All students typically will not test on the same day. Learning doesn't really occur that way, so I give them freedom to, if 5 or 6 feel like they're ready, they could test that day. They don't sit beside each other, those kind of things. So rarely do I have a class of 24 with 22 testing on the same day. I sort of allow some flexibility there. So they test. I tier the tests. First couple questions would be level 1 type of questions, if you're considering depth of knowledge or even Bloom's taxonomy. And then 5 and 6, for example, question 5 and 6 would be something requiring a deeper or a higher level of learning, of understanding the concept or skill. So I try to make my question or my tests short and targeted. I previously had entered them into our separate gradebook as third-party gradebook. We never had a learning management system before, or I didn't at the school I was at. I entered them as I can statements. I can, and I just wrote down the skills of particular things that I was trying to measure at that point. And that's all my gradebook had. I've eliminated all the fluff, and I just hope you can trust me there that I'm trying. I don't know that I'm making a whole lot of other errors in measuring learning, and I've reduced, if I say reduced, my measurement to only those standards that we're covering at that time. So the students have caught on to that, and they've been fine. as far as being this early in the year. I mean, I think they understand that part. I'm having an issue in Canvas. Canvas asks me to assign a point value to every question. In standards-based learning, I know that particularly like Marzano's work, I think he's one with the 4-point scale, and I understand that. And even in the past, I went with the 100. I went with the percentages because my parents and students were so much more familiar with that. But the students found out eventually, the smart ones, I shouldn't say that, smart students, that's terrible of me. But some of the kids caught on. I would really only give them 100, 75, or I told them they need to try again. Like I wouldn't even give a score to it. And I think eventually some of the students realized, why does Mr. Oldfield never give me an 87? Why does he never give me a 94? And I wouldn't give those point values because in the back of my own mind I knew that, if they weren't there yet or they were almost there, I could give them a 75 or 80, which would make them come back again and try for 100. And if I was doing my job right and they were doing their job, they generally would do that. They would come back and get the 100 after they invested some time and practice correcting those mistakes that they made before. So in Canvas, like I said, it asked me to assign a point value to every question. How many points should an assessment be worth? I don't know that, and I'm struggling. Excuse me. Canvas averages everything. So for example, if one assessment is worth 4 points, then I guess I could have, I could have 4 questions all worth 1 point. I could have 8 questions worth a half a point. I could really differentiate. I could have 6 questions where some of them were, some fraction of a point, and others may have been a whole point. But I could do things like that. I don't know if you would suggest that, or if anyone's got any experience using a learning management system to design, their tests and things. I'm almost at the point now where I'm going to say, just ditch trying to operate within Canvas. It makes it convenient as far as communicating and offering things to my students because it's all within that one hub. But I don't like that one, Canvas averages everything, which I know most every third party, any grade book you're going to use likely averages things, and I understand the the fault of averaging grades. I'm experiencing it now, but with the total points, because I've operated before in this larger, I mean, it's not a 100-point scale, but my students think it is. I was able to almost subjectively look at their result, and if I had 6 questions, but I knew the bottom 2 were probably going to be the hardest for them because the first couple questions were just really low level, maybe procedural. If you're doing an equation, I just literally offer them an equation. Can you solve for X? Nothing else, nothing to interpret or nothing to really dig out of the graph or anything like that. Well, I knew typically my students would probably miss the bottom 2. I probably place more value on those because as far as measuring learning, I think that's probably the level that I would like my kids to perform. So I place a little more value in those kinds of questions than I did those first couple. And in Canvas, I'm struggling with making that clear in the assessment because it requires me to put point values to everything, and I don't know how many total points to shoot for because I've always done the larger percentage, I guess. Do you have any thoughts on that? Anything to say about using a learning management system, creating quizzes, tests? And if you've got any experience doing things digitally, what did you do? Or, honestly, I'm at the point, I think I said this, I could go back. This is my 3rd take in this video. I'm sorry, it's too long and I'm trying to shorten it. I've thought about just going back to the Google Forms. Actually, my students are Google Apps for Ed now. I changed jobs over the summer, but I don't even have to use that. I could still just issue them with a tiny URL because I worked really well. In Canvas, what I would have to do is create an assignment and tell Canvas that it was a paper assignment. I didn't make it within Canvas, and then just manually enter the grade in the grade book like I was doing before. If I chose that way, what I could do, see, before I could just make one assignment, and I wrote it labeled it with an I can statement to make it clear what the students were being measured on. And if a student had to take it 3 times, I just continually went in and replaced that grade with a better one. In Canvas, I have to make 3 different versions, but Canvas lists them in their gradebook as 3 different assignments. So it's a little bit extra work on my part now that if a student has to take it 3 times, I have to go in and manually delete those other grades for version 1 and version 2, assuming their third one is the highest. I have to manually go in and put E for excused, or I think if I just delete it with a dash mark or something, it won't average that. But I have to, blank out those other scores. And in some cases, for students who do really well in their first attempt, they don't need a second or third. I still have to go in and put something for the second or third attempt in Canvas, because if I make 3 assignments, I have to make them for the whole class. And Canvas doesn't allow me to make a third version of the test for the 2 students who need it and not for the 22 who don't. So that's an issue that's existing now. You're trying to use Canvas, the learning management system, that I didn't have before. So I don't know. In listening to myself talk here, I probably know the solution, and it's probably ditch Canvas. But ditch Canvas and stop using it to create the assessments. And I hate that, but I feel like creating the assessments in the management system only promotes bad grading practices. Most teachers will create 1 test, and students take it regardless of what they get. They move on. And that 1 test, as far as measuring learning, they're probably, Canvas also has the 5 homework assignments that teacher assigned leading up to the test is also going to be in that grade book. I just don't operate like that. I know you understand that, but I refuse to try to operate that way. So I'm not going to grade the practice. I just want to grade when my students feel like they've made it. Grade the destination, not the journey, that kind of thing. So I'm struggling with how to use Canvas. And to be honest with you, I think a lot of my school looks at me as a techie. I don't really think of that. I think that way of myself, but I'm probably one of the leaders in, hey, let's model for the staff how to use these things and get these tools going, particularly because I do have MacBooks. We will have, I believe, in the neighborhood of 500 MacBook Airs in our high school that students will carry around and have as personal devices this year. I have a cart, and hope the deal is next year, hopefully every student has their own, so we're totally one-to-one. But I have one-to-one capabilities in my classroom. They don't leave my room though. But I'm struggling with how to do that, how to create assessments where I literally have to assign a point value to every one. And maybe I was doing it wrong before, being so subjective. When I looked at a student's test and they may have got 4 out of 6, and I told them, well, you missed this one and you missed this one. Here's what you need to do to remediate, to practice this skill. And I, made sure they knew what to do. Here's what you need to do to practice this skill. And I would always ask them, what do you think you got on this test? That's always the last question of my test, even in the digital test that I've been creating. The last question is, assign yourself a grade. I start out the year by putting A's, B's, C's, D, and I gradually move to A or NTY, not there yet. And then in addition to that, I gradually move to A, NTY, and then I put an option for text for a response. If you are NTY, explain why. And I just get my students reflecting on their work habits and effort, those things. Kind of implements a level of responsibility, which a lot of people would say, oh, Oldfield, you're not teaching any responsibility, you don't do a bunch of homework, but those things. So I appreciate you listening. This is too long again. It's really hard to do in a short amount of time. I probably could have done it in a phone call, I guess, but we'd probably be talking to each other on the phone longer. I appreciate you listening, and I would appreciate your advice, your support on any areas of this incorporating a learning management system, the grade book within the system, how do you assign point values to specific questions, and how many total points should a quiz or my assessment be worth. I don't know the answer to not averaging them, honestly. Being bound to using this grade book, I feel like it automatically averages, and I don't know how to attack. I don't even know if I could have that conversation with anyone. I'm about to run out of time. Thank you.